The slap echoed through the crowded office, sharp and stinging, like a whip cracking in the air. Sarah's hand trembled as she stared at the security guard, James, her palm still burning from where it met his cheek. The entire staff of Pinnacle Tech froze, their eyes wide, coffee cups forgotten in their hands. James, in his faded blue uniform, stood still, his face unreadable, but his dark eyes locked onto Sarah's with a quiet intensity that made her heart skip. Why did he just take it? Why didn't he flinch? I said, "Get out of my way, you useless guard." Sarah spat, her voice shaking with anger. "You think you can tell me what to do? You're nothing." The office buzzed with whispers. James, the new security guard, had only been at Pinnacle Tech for a month, always polite, always quiet, but now he was at the center of a storm. Sarah, company's star marketer, was known for her beauty and her temper. Nobody dared cross her, so why had James, nobody, stepped in front of her, blocking her path to the CEO's office with a calm, "You can't go in there right now." What nobody knew, nobody except James, was that he wasn't just a security guard. He was David Oakwood, the billionaire owner of Pinnacle Tech, hiding behind a fake name and a cheap uniform. He'd built this company from nothing, turning a small tech startup into Nigeria's biggest software empire. But success had left him lonely. The women he met saw his wealth, not his heart. So, he'd made a wild plan. Disguise himself as a low-paid guard to find someone who'd love him for who he was, not what he had. But now, standing in the middle of his own company, with Sarah's handprint stinging his face, he wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. James rubbed his cheek, the pain sharp but nothing compared to the ache in his chest. He'd seen Sarah's type before, beautiful, ambitious, cruel when she felt threatened. Yet, something in her eyes, a flicker of hurt beneath the anger, made him pause. Was she more than her sharp words? He didn't know, but he wanted to find out. "Miss Sarah," he said softly, his voice steady despite the sting, "I'm just doing my job." "Your job?" She scoffed, tossing her braids over her shoulder. "Your job is to open doors, not block them. Do you even know who I am?" The office was a jungle of glass walls and sleek desks, buzzing with the hum of computers and the chatter of Lagos's brightest tech minds. James stood at the entrance to the CEO's office, his broad shoulders filling the doorway. He was tall, with a quiet strength that made people notice him, even in his plain uniform. Sarah, in her sharp red blazer and heels that clicked like gunshots, glared at him. The other employees watched, some smirking, others nervous. Nobody stood up to Sarah. "Not ever. I know who you are," James said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "But rules are rules. The boss said no one goes in." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "The boss? You mean Mr. Oakwood? He'll fire you for this, you know. One word from me, and you're gone." James's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Fire me," he thought. "I'd love to see that." But he said nothing, just held her gaze. The air crackled with tension. Everyone waited for his next move. Would he back down, apologize, beg? Instead, James stepped aside, his movements slow, deliberate. "Go ahead, then," he said. "But you'll wish you listened." Sarah froze. His words weren't loud, but they carried a weight that made her stomach twist. What did he mean? Why did his eyes look like they saw right through her? She pushed past him, her shoulder brushing his, and stormed into the CEO's office. The door slammed shut behind her. The office erupted in whispers. Who does he think he is? Sarah's going to get him sacked. Did you see how he looked at her? James stood still, his heart pounding. He'd almost blown his cover. But Sarah, she was a puzzle. Angry, yes, but there was something else. Something broken. He'd seen it in the way her hands shook after the slap, the way her voice cracked just a little. He wanted to know her story, and he had a feeling she'd just walked into his. The CEO's office was empty. Sarah stood in the middle of the room, her breath uneven, staring at the polished mahogany desk and the leather chair that nobody ever saw occupied. Mr. Oakwood, the mysterious billionaire who owned Pinnacle Tech, was a ghost. He sent emails, made calls, but never showed his face. Some said he lived abroad. Others said he was too busy to bother with the office. Sarah had dreamed of meeting him, impressing him, maybe even catching his eye. She was the best at her job. Her marketing campaigns had doubled the company's sales in a year. If anyone deserved a promotion, it was her. But now, standing in the empty office, she felt small. James's words echoed in her head. "You'll wish you listened." What did he know? He was just a guard, wasn't he? So why did her heart race when she thought of his calm, steady eyes? Back in the main office, James returned to his post by the entrance, ignoring the stares. His mind was racing. Sarah was troubled, but she was also magnetic. He'd watched her for weeks, noticed how she commanded every room, how her smile could light up a meeting or cut like a knife. She was fierce, but there was pain behind her fire. He'd seen it in the way she stayed late, working alone when everyone else went home. He'd seen it in the way she flinched when someone mentioned family. His plan had been simple. Blend in, watch, listen, find someone who saw him as more than a bank account. He'd chosen the security guard role because it let him see everyone, employees, clients, cleaners, without being noticed. But Sarah noticed him. Oh, she noticed him. And now, he was hooked. That evening, the office was quiet, the Lagos skyline glowing gold through the windows. Most employees had left, but Sarah was still at her desk, her fingers flying across her laptop. She was working on a new campaign, one she hoped would finally get Mr. Okoye's attention. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister, Mara. "Sarah, when are you coming home? Mama's asking for you." Sarah's jaw tightened. She didn't reply. Home was a small flat in Surulere, where her mother's coughs filled the nights and her sister's dreams of university hung like a weight on Sarah's shoulders. She'd left that life behind, or tried to. Pinnacle Tech was her escape, her chance to be someone. She wasn't going back to being the girl who shared a mattress with her sister in a room that smelled of damp. Across the office, James watched her from his post. He'd stayed late, too, pretending to check the security cameras. Really, he was watching her. Her focus, her drive, reminded him of himself 10 years ago, when he was coding in a tiny room in Ikeja, dreaming of building something big. He'd done it, but at what cost? Friends who only called when they needed money. Women who loved his cars more than his heart. He was tired of it all. He walked over, his boots soft on the carpet. "You work too hard," he said, his voice breaking the silence. Sarah jumped, her eyes snapping up. "What are you doing here?" She snapped. "Shouldn't you be guarding something?" James leaned against a desk, his arms crossed. "I'm guarding you," he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You're the only one left." Sarah rolled her eyes, but her heart did a funny flip. His voice was warm, like a blanket on a cold night. "I don't need guarding," she said, turning back to her laptop. "Go away." He didn't move. "Why do you stay so late?" he asked. "You're always here. Don't you have somewhere else to be?" Her fingers froze on the keyboard. The question hit too close. She wanted to snap at him, to tell him to mind his business, but something in his tone stopped her. It wasn't mocking. It was curious, like he actually cared. "I have work to do," she said finally, her voice tight. "Not that you'd understand." James nodded, like he'd expected that answer. "Work's important," he said. "But it's not everything." Sarah laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "Easy for you to say. You're just a guard. You don't have to fight for anything." His eyes darkened, just for a moment, but he didn't argue. Instead, he said, "You'd be surprised what I've fought for." She looked at him then, really looked at him. His uniform was faded, but his hands were strong, his posture straight. There was something about him, something that didn't fit. Most guards she knew were lazy, always on their phones. But James, he watched everything. Like he owned the place. "What's your deal, anyway?" she asked, leaning back in her chair. "Why do you care what I do?" He shrugged, his smile soft. "Maybe I see something in you. Something worth caring about." Her breath caught. Nobody had ever said anything like that to her. Not her mother, who only asked for money. Not her ex, who'd left her when she wouldn't quit her job to follow him. Not even her sister, who loved her but didn't understand her. She wanted to believe him, but trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. "You don't know me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then let me," he said. Over the next few weeks, James and Sarah fell into a strange rhythm. He'd bring her coffee in the mornings, leaving it on her desk with a quiet, "Don't work too hard." She'd roll her eyes, but she'd drink it. He'd stay late, pretending to check the locks, but really, he was watching her, listening to her talk about her campaigns, her dreams. She didn't know why she told him things, maybe because he listened like no one else did. He learned her story in pieces. Her father had died when she was 10, leaving her mother to raise 2 girls alone. Sarah had clawed her way out of poverty, studying by candlelight, winning scholarships, landing this job at Pinnacle Tech. She was proud, fierce, but scared of falling back into the life she'd escaped. James shared bits of himself, too, careful not to reveal too much. He told her about growing up in Lagos, about wanting to build something that mattered. He didn't mention the billions in his bank account or the company he'd built. He wanted her to see him, not his money. One evening, as rain pounded the office windows, Sarah looked up from her desk and saw James standing by the door, his uniform damp. "Why do you stay?" she asked suddenly. "This job, it's nothing. You could do better." He smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "Maybe I'm looking for something more than a job." Her heart raced. She wanted to ask what he meant, but fear stopped her. She'd been hurt before. Trusting people only led to pain. But James was different. He didn't push. He didn't demand. He just stayed. And slowly, against her will, she started to care. One Friday, the office was abuzz with news. Mr. Okoye, the mysterious CEO, was coming to Lagos. He'd be visiting Pinnacle Tech for the first time in years. The staff was in a frenzy, preparing presentations, polishing desks, whispering about who might catch his eye. Sarah was determined to impress him. This was her chance, her shot at a promotion, maybe even a place at his side. James overheard her talking to a coworker, her voice bright with hope. "If I can just meet Mr. Okoye," she said, "I know I can show him what I'm worth." James's stomach twisted. She wanted to meet the CEO. She wanted to meet him. But not like this, not as the billionaire in a suit, but as James, the guard who brought her coffee. He'd fallen for her, hard. Her fire, her pain, her dreams, they were real, raw, everything he'd been searching for. But if she knew who he really was, would she still look at him the same way? He had to tell her. But how, and when? That night, as the office emptied, Sarah stayed late again. James approached her desk, his heart heavy. "Sarah," he said, his voice soft but urgent. "There's something I need to tell you." She looked up, her eyes tired but curious. "What is it?" He opened his mouth, ready to confess everything, his real name, his plan, his feelings. But before he could speak, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her face went pale. "It's my sister," she whispered, answering the call. "Amara, what's wrong?" James watched as her expression crumbled. Tears filled her eyes, and her voice broke. "Mama's in the hospital," she said. "How bad is it?" She hung up, her hands shaking. "I have to go," she said, grabbing her bag. "My mother, she's sick. I need to get to her." James didn't think. He grabbed his keys. "I'll drive you," he said. She looked at him, surprised, but nodded. "Okay." As they sped through the rainy Lagos streets, James's secret burned in his chest. He wanted to tell her, but not now, not when her world was falling apart. For now, he'd be what she needed. A friend, a support, a guard. But the truth was coming. And when it did, it would change everything. The hospital smelled of bleach and fear, the kind of place where hope felt thin. Sarah sat in the waiting room, her hands twisted in her lap, her eyes red from crying. James sat beside her, silent but steady, his presence like an anchor in a storm. The doctor had just told her the news. Her mother needed surgery, fast. It was expensive. Too expensive for Sarah's savings, even with her big job at Pinnacle Tech. She felt like the walls were closing in, like the life she'd built was crumbling under her feet. James watched her, his heart aching. He could pay for the surgery in a heartbeat. One call, and the hospital would have everything it needed. But he was still James the security guard, not David Okoye the billionaire. If he told her now, would she see him as a savior or a liar? "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. Sarah shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "No, I'm not okay. My mother might die, and I can't afford to save her. All this work, all this fighting, and it's still not enough. He wanted to hold her, to tell her it would be okay, but he didn't. Instead, he said, "You're stronger than you think, Sarah. You've carried so much already." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you here, James? You don't even know me." "Not really." He leaned closer, his voice low. "I know you're scared. I know you love your family, even if you don't say it. I know you stay late at work because you're afraid of failing. I see you, Sarah." Her breath hitched. Nobody had ever said anything like that to her. Not in a way that felt so real, so raw. She wanted to push him away, to tell him he was wrong, but she couldn't. Because he was right. The doctor came back, his face grim. "Miss Sarah, we need to start the surgery tonight. Can you arrange the payment?" Sarah's stomach dropped. "How much?" she whispered. 5 million naira, the doctor said. She felt like she'd been punched. 5 million. She didn't have half that. Her savings were for Amara's school fees, for emergencies, but this was too much. James stood up. "I'll take care of it," he said. Sarah's head snapped toward him. "What? You? How?" He hesitated, his heart pounding. This was it, the moment to tell her. But before he could speak, the doctor nodded and walked away, assuming James would handle it. Sarah grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with confusion and something else. Hope. "James, what's going on? You're a security guard. You can't have that kind of money." He took a deep breath. "Sarah, there's something I need to tell you." But before he could, Amara burst into the waiting room, her face streaked with tears. "Sarah, they're taking Mama to surgery now. We have to pray." Sarah hugged her sister, her eyes still on James, questions burning in her gaze. He'd bought himself a little more time, but not much. The truth was coming, and it would hit like a tidal wave. The next morning, Sarah's mother was stable, resting in a private room James had quietly arranged. Sarah hadn't slept, her mind spinning with questions. How had James paid for the surgery? Why was he still here, sitting outside her mother's room, his uniform wrinkled but his eyes alert? She cornered him in the hospital corridor, her voice low but fierce. "Tell me the truth, James. Who are you?" He looked at her, his heart heavy. He'd fallen for her. Her strength, her fire, her hidden softness. But he'd lied to her, and that lie was a wall between them. He took a deep breath. "My name isn't James," he said. "It's David. David Okoye." Sarah's eyes widened, her breath catching. "David Okoye, as in, the CEO. The billionaire." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I own Pinnacle Tech. I've been pretending to be a security guard too, to find someone real. Someone who'd see me, not my money." Her face changed, shock turning to anger. "You lied to me," she whispered. "All this time, you were playing a game. Watching me, laughing at me." "No," he said quickly, stepping closer. "It wasn't a game. I wanted to know you, Sarah. The real you. And I do. I see you." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You don't get it. I trusted you. I told you things I've never told anyone. And you were what? Testing me, like I'm some kind of experiment." "Sarah, please," he said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I love you." The words hung in the air, heavy and raw. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. Love. She wanted to believe him, but the betrayal cut deep. She'd opened her heart to a guard, not a billionaire. Who was he, really? She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the empty corridor. James. David. Stood there, his chest tight. He'd found what he was looking for, but he might have lost it forever. Back at Pinnacle Tech, the office was buzzing with excitement. Mr. Okoye was coming today. Sarah sat at her desk, her heart heavy. She'd taken a week off to stay with her mother, who was recovering well, thanks to David's money. But every time she thought of him, her stomach twisted. He'd lied, yes, but he'd also saved her mother. He'd listened to her, cared for her, seen her in a way nobody else had. Was that all fake? When David walked into the office, the room went silent. He wasn't in a guard's uniform now. He wore a tailored suit, his presence commanding. The staff stared, some whispering, others gaping. Sarah's heart stopped. He was James, but he wasn't. He was David Okoye, the man she'd dreamed of impressing, the man she'd slapped, the man she'd fallen for. He walked straight to her desk, ignoring everyone else. "Sarah," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I need to say something." She stood, her hands trembling. "What more is there to say? You lied to me, I know," he said, his eyes locked on hers. "And I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you let me. I didn't want you to love me for my money. I wanted you to love me for me. And I think you did." Her throat tightened. She thought of the coffee he'd brought her, the nights he'd stayed late, the way he'd held her hand in the hospital. That wasn't a billionaire. That was James. That was real. "I don't know if I can trust you," she said, her voice breaking. "But I want to." He stepped closer, his voice soft. "Then let me show you. No more lies. Just us." The office was silent, every eye on them. Sarah felt the weight of it all. Her pride, her fear, her hope. She'd fought so hard to be strong, to never need anyone. But maybe, just maybe, she could let someone in. She took his hand, her fingers trembling. "Okay," she whispered, "but if you ever lie to me again, I'll slap you harder than before." He laughed, a warm, relieved sound, and pulled her into his arms. The office erupted in applause, but Sarah didn't hear it. All she felt was his heartbeat, steady and true, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd found something worth trusting. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Sarah realized something. Love wasn't about money or titles. It was about showing up, about seeing someone's heart, even when it was messy and scared. David had seen her, and she'd seen him, not the billionaire, but the man who'd chosen her over everything else. They'd faced challenges, her pride, his secrets, the world that would judge them. But for now, they had each other. And that was enough.